meantime, I'll add you as a co-host so you can share.
Who scheduled this thing at the same time as the Apple event? You mean Apple scheduled their thing at the same time as our event? I mean, look, man.
I haven't mentioned them in my last talk.
I mean, look, choose your priorities. The identity layer of the internet or the next iteration of whatever Apple's doing.
Okay, I shared.
I actually want the new MacBook though, but I love ENS, of course.
Yeah, no, me too.
I've been waiting for that for like a year as well.
Could I just share the YouTube video, the new link on the Zoom? Do I just post on? I'll just list the next the second session. It is for that. Okay. So I shared in the ENS workshop and the Zoom section. Yeah. How many people now? There's already 18 people, so I guess. Did anyone check it if it's working?
Yep, it looks like it's working.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I'll just hand over to you straight, Brantley.
Great. Yeah, just one second. I'm just tweeting this out. Talking about okay, here's my slides. All right, can you guys see these slides?
Yes.
Yes.
You can? Okay, perfect. Great to see all of you. Thanks for being here. So now this is gonna be a session on ENS as like Web3 username and profile. I'm just gonna talk about this for a few minutes. Then I'm gonna pass it over to Rocco and Wayne from Spruce ID, who are leading the Sign with Ethereum effort, which many of you are also involved in, and they're just gonna give a quick update on that, and then we're gonna have a time for questions. Okay, so funny thing about this is that ENS was not designed to be an identity system, right? So Nick first started thinking about ENS, he's told me in 2016, because he was initially on the Swarm team at the Ethereum Foundation. He was there briefly, then moved to the Geth team, but that got him thinking about some sort of decentralized naming system for Swarm hashes. And then when ENS launched in early 2017, in May 2017, it was very simple. It was like .eth names for Ethereum addresses and Swarm hashes. And the analogy really was to DNS, right? This was the analogy. Since early in the Ethereum's history, people have also done a lot of thinking about identity, and a lot of different identity projects have tried different things. But ENS was not thinking of itself in that way. But about a year ago, I just sort of realized that, in fact, I think ENS has kind of become the de facto identity standard. In fact, I've been convinced, I think that it's a great thing to be like core to an identity standard. ENS is very, very simple, right? It's not fancy. It's you have names, people can own those names, and that those names can point to information. That's it, right? And that is like a very simple skeleton, I think is actually great for identity. A couple other thoughts I have about identity is that I think part of the reason that identity has been such a tricky problem, even though we're 6 years into Ethereum and even more into the blockchain space, and people have been thinking about identity since even before Ethereum, is that I think identity is actually like 100 really hard problems. It's not like one problem, it's actually like 100 hard problems. And if you try to solve too many of them at once, your chance of actually hitting on the correct solution for all of them is like extremely low, and your chance of success is extremely low. And so the way I think about identity is that all these different problems need to be unbundled. They need to be like solved separately. And by solved, I don't just mean someone has come up with a system they think works, but like multiple attempts exposed to the market, see if something catches on, and then, oh, great, something's kind of caught on. This actually is what we want. And now we've kind of maybe solved like that problem, but now we have like 19 other problems, right? And ENS is great because it's not trying to solve all identity problems. Like I said, it's just like you have names, owners of the names and information attached to those names. That fact means that it's very extensible. So like an example that I often use is, let's say the proof of humanity / KYC / Sybil resistance kind of issue. These are all sort of like kind of overlapping issues. ENS, kind of maybe helps with that because, well, there's some friction if you have a name instead of reverse record or the primary ENS name, but it's not really trying to solve that. And there's lots of other projects that are trying to solve that, and that's great. And that they're still kind of early, and let's see how that plays out. Well, it's okay because ENS can use those things, right? You could like store a record in a text record or kind of extend this. We don't have to solve all problems at once, and people can continue to work on these other problems separately. One thing that kind of got me thinking about this is, of course, since 2019, there's been this phenomenon of people putting .eth names as their Twitter name. Nick claims that he thinks he was the first person in human history to do this way back in the day. It was probably earlier than late 2019. But in 2019, we had the short name auction, and a lot of people's first names are less than 7 characters. And I remember it was like November 2019 that this trend kind of really took off. Vitalik changed his name to Vitalik.eth. He's been like that for 2 years. And since then, there's just been this viral trend. I just give a couple other examples here, like Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz. He does this. I mean, that's incredible. He's one of the best VCs ever, right? Beanie is just another, I just chose an example. He's like an NFT person, right? Love him or hate him, right? He's just an example. And there's thousands of these by one person. One person did a study, and they thought that there was about 16,000 Twitter accounts that have this. These numbers are hazy because there is really no good way of checking all of this on Twitter with their API. So it might be significantly more than that. But I think that's actually pretty incredible. And of course, other naming attempt systems have tried to copy this, but there's far fewer people doing it. ENS has many times more than all of them combined, people signaling in this way. Another thing you'll notice here, at least with three of the examples, is they also have NFT avatars that they have manually set as their avatar. And this is another thing that has just kind of naturally happened on Twitter. And basically, what I see with ENS is that, maybe I'll get to this in a second, is that what people are doing manually on Twitter, we can do automatically in Web3, right? You get your ENS name, you set as the primary ENS name, you set an NFT avatar in the records, and now when you connect to a dApp, it just automatically uses that username and avatar. Another key thing here is, another way I think about it, is that in Web 2, right, for each service, you have your own like username and account that's like siloed on that service, right? On Web 3, it completely is flipped around. You own your username, you own your profile, you control it, and then you take that with you to each thing. And as a result, your Ethereum account and your ENS name becomes your portable cross-platform account for the internet. It's not even just for Ethereum or for dApps. Any service could potentially use this, and we'll be getting more into that with the sign-in with Ethereum. I think this is revolutionary. I think this is actually now the most important thing that ENS does. I often think that ENS does 3 main things, right? It's like your portable username, it's simplified crypto payments, it's decentralized websites. I actually now think that these simplified crypto payments and decentralized website, those are actually should be understood as part of the bigger thing, which is just, it's your internet identity. So like you have this name, you have profile information, you have your payment information, you have your page, and that is all a part of your online identity. Here's just some examples. This is Uniswap here at the top. You can see, I connect, and there's my name, and there's my NFT avatar. There's 1inch here is another example. Support for ENS username support is in like dozens and dozens of dApps around Web3. That's very common. Like crypto voxels will default to it as your name in their system. OpenSea will default your profile to it. And even if you set a custom name, it still shows it at the top of your profile. Avagachi, Showtime defaults to it. Tons of places. The avatar support, we actually just came out with this, as many of you know. So that is not as widely integrated, but we already have it in Uniswap, on on 1inch, Cryptex Finance, Nouns DAO. I think there's a couple other ones that have added it. And then, of course, also with the release of our metadata service, your avatar will show up as the background of your NFT, like on OpenSea and other places. So the name, the use of your ENS name as username, that's widely used in Web3. The avatar is new, so it's not as widely, but hopefully this can catch on. So this just, example, some of the records for my name, Brintley.eth. You can see, of course, it's like my email if I want to put it, a URL to another website, to like a normal DNS website. The avatar, I have that, it shows up. But I have other information, my Twitter, GitHub, and then right now some of these other ones are like custom records, but I think we're actually going to be working on making a lot of these defaults that will show up automatically in the UI. So like your Telegram, LinkedIn, Discord, Reddit, whatever you want. Of course, it's all voluntary. Yeah, so this is just showing off the new metadata thing I mentioned. So basically, we recently took over control of the metadata for ENS names. Long story, but previously we actually didn't control it, and all the images that you saw were just placeholder images created by OpenSea a couple years ago. Long funny history there, but now we do control it and it looks much better. Of course, we have this gradient thing that's the default, but if you set your avatar, that shows up as the background. And I think this is really a useful visual cue showing that it's like this is your online identity. Your ENS name, your avatar gets combined together and kind of represents this identity. So we see some examples. I'll mention the Jeff Morse Jr. This is actually just like a picture, like an HTTPS pointer. So this does work even if it's not an NFT that you own. But I think if it's an NFT that you own, that's obviously cooler because ownership. Makoto actually just put this together earlier today. There's just kind of like a collection of a bunch of different NFT images for ENS names of people who have, are using their avatar. I just think it looks really cool. This is just a small sample. Makoto is doing research on how many people have done this. And even though we just launched this like, not long ago, a few days ago, for the metadata service and a week ago for the avatar, already a few thousand, I think you said like 2,300 people, give or take, have already set it up, which is amazing, given that, frankly, it's kind of hard to set up your avatar record right now. We have very kind of raw manual support, and there's a high gas. So it's like, man, do you really want to spend $100 to set up your avatar record? But these are early adopters and pioneers who are kind of taking the time to figure it out and pay a little bit more. Of course, we want to fix all these problems, but I think that's an incredible start. That you have to like know about it. You have to get the guide and follow the instructions and pay all the money. And it's incredible. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's super cool. But the future. So like I said, ENS was not conceived as your username and profile for the whole internet. It was just like, solving one simple problem. It's like Dottie themes for Ethereum addresses and maybe a swarm hash or something. But I think it has become this. And so the current manager we have, which is beautiful and works great, that was initially designed, a couple of years ago around the old idea. But now we have this kind of more developed view, and we are redesigning the manager from the ground up around this new concept to make it as easy and user-friendly as possible. So what you see here, these are just some very early rough drafts of part of the manager. We have some wireframes of even more of it. We're still filling things out, tweaking things. You'll note that if you follow my Twitter, you probably actually saw this about a month ago or so. And some of this has been a bit slow going because we've been distracted by some of these other projects, but this is something that we're working on. To give people expectations, it's probably going to be like a few months before we actually release something like this. This is not like right around the corner, unfortunately. Yes, I wish it was. Yes, I'm excited about it too, but just giving people expectations, but I hope it will be worth it. I just want to highlight a few things about this design that you see here and also that you don't see here. So we want to also vastly improve the registration process. It's related to this. So as many of you know, when you register, let's say a .eth name, you do a commit transaction once that is confirmed, you have 1 minute of waiting, and then you have your reveal transaction, which actually completes the registration. Of course, we have that multi-step process to prevent MEV, which I have to give Nick credit to. He was way ahead on this years ago before there even was the term MEV. ENS has never had that problem because Nick was way ahead of it. What we're going to do now is during that 1 minute period. Yes, thank you, Tommy. My 3-year-old's telling me that the mail has arrived. Thank you, Tommy. So during that 1 minute period, you're going to be able to start filling out your profile. So like, the Ethereum address will probably be filled out automatically for you because we can just assume that, but like you'll be able to select an avatar. So like you'll hit select NFT and a box will come up that shows all your NFTs, and you just, click one and boom, it's selected. All that messy, ID stuff will be completely hidden from you. You'll never have to do that again, right? We also want to do the same thing like an NFT header image. I think that's super cool. Fill out other information, accounts. So, here's your Twitter account, your OpenSea account, maybe your Showtime account, your Foundation account, all these different things. If you want to link to those pages, put all your addresses, put an IPFS hash for a decentralized website, any other arbitrary records, but you'll fill this out while you're waiting. And then that final registration transaction will register the name. It'll be wrapped automatically with all the benefits of that. And it will have all that information filled out. Boom, you are completely ready to go. And I think that's exciting. And it should make it so, everybody who's signing up, registering an ENS name will be using these things rather than they register it and then they don't even know you can do more with it. And you have to go to another page and do all these other things. Oh, also another thing is that the ENS primary record, formerly reverse record, that will also be set automatically. So the logic there will be, if you don't have it set, the default will be that it'll set for you with a possible opt-out, probably as like an advanced thing, because everybody really just should be setting it unless you have a good reason. But if you do have a primary ENS name record already, it will be not set by default, but with the opportunity for you to update it to the new name if you want. So then it'll be opt-in. That will be the logic. This is kind of the early draft. If anybody has comments on this, just this our direction we're going, but this will even probably change, somewhat significantly before we do it. And yeah, I'm very excited about this. Okay, just want to pause there for a second, and I just want to look and see if there's any quick questions I can respond to, and then I want to pass the floor to the Sign with Ethereum people. So let me just look at this real quick. Also, your ENS profile will outlive any Apple product. Hadrian says, Hadrian is correct. Hadrian knows what's going on. Yeah, it's not hard to outlive. Okay, these are just people's commenting. Wolf.eth is so dope, indeed. Looks awesome. Hooray for automatic reverse record. Yes, I know. I'm so ready for it to be automatic. And also, remember, it's automatic primary ENS name now. Will it be in the same transaction? Will it require some transaction like today? It will be in the same transaction. Yes, as Jeff said, it will all be one bulk transaction. Now, a negative thing, of course, is that this second reveal registration transaction, like all these things add gas. So every single record you're setting adds a little bit of gas. Adding the reverse, the ENS primary record, that's a little bit of gas. The wrapper is a little bit of gas, and this does add up. We're cognizant of it, but I think it's worth it. And of course, there's other efforts to be lowering gas costs on Ethereum in general. Okay, that's all I see. Wayne and Rocco, do you want to unmute yourselves and say hello?
Hey, this is Wayne here. I'll be presenting on signing with Ethereum. I've been grateful to work with Rocco and Brantley here on many of the efforts and also with the broader community. So I'll kind of share my screen. Can
I say something real quick, just as you're getting that screen set up? So basically the vision here, guys, is that what we're doing in Web3, there's no reason we can't actually also use this in Web2 applications that have no connection to crypto, right? As many of you know, right? You authenticate by signing with your private key. They can grab your ENS name and your profile data and just automatically use that. And so our goal is that we want this also used by Web2 services that have nothing to do with crypto. We did an RFP and grant in conjunction with the Ethereum Foundation. They were very excited about these ideas and standardizing this. We had a lot of people apply for it, many of whom would have been completely competent to do it. We just had to pick somebody just to lead the effort, push it forward. But of course, it's an open process. Many of you are already involved. Yeah, all right, let's go to Wayne here.
Great. If you could please help me with the screen sharing permissions that I can get the slides up.
One sec. Yeah.
So you should be able to see my screen now. It should say sign in with Ethereum. Is that right?
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, great. So sign in with Ethereum, or the acronym that we're using now, is CWE, as in C, or the Spanish for yes, and we are all going to make it. Sign in with Ethereum is a new form of authentication that lets users control their digital identity with their Ethereum account and ENS profiles instead of relying on traditional intermediaries. So Brantley went over a bunch of the great data that you can associate, like human readable identifiers, your .eth name, and other things like your avatars that are available, and a whole slew of features coming along. We're really excited for that. We see sign in with Ethereum as a force multiplier for a lot of those things. Now that we have a way to find more information about a human readable identifier, right? Can we also see if we're talking to the real person behind that identifier, right? You might have used a service like OpenSea or some other services that hold metadata associated with your Ethereum address. And before they let you change that metadata, like your alias or something, they make you sign something to show that you actually hold the key behind that account. So you can indeed make those changes. Not anyone should be able to, change your alias or profile picture for the data hosted on OpenSea that's associated with your account, right? But what's great about this is that we're able to combine all the data about your identifier that you want people to know with the ability to prove you are who you say you are to a service and get special access that way. Instead of logging with Google, log with Facebook, you can log in with Ethereum. So some updates here. The standard that we are working on is called EIP 4361. And we've published a draft for about, I think, a week and a half now. We've been getting a lot of feedback from the community. We've looked at a lot of prior EIP efforts. We'll publish a post soon on all the identity EIPs that we've looked at and researched and tried to incorporate aspects of the good parts into the design. And had a lot of great discussions with the community. Hour-long calls on Fridays usually, where people bring up everything from usability concerns to security concerns. We want to take all that feedback and make a better spec that works for everyone. It's an open community effort. Yes, we were selected to lead the effort, but we see ourselves more as a steward of the community to get everyone in the same room, make sure that we're talking about the same topics, make sure the recordings and notes go up so that it can be open and as inclusive as possible to make sure that it's going to be adoption. It's not going to work if one company says this is the way. It takes a lot of listening to the ecosystem, listening to people who might actually want to use it. So we've had over 175 signups, everyone from developers, identity experts, and more. We've talked about privacy, we've talked about security, different wallet support for things. And if you're curious, we always post the recordings online. We welcome you to attend these if you'd like to get more involved in the process. We're going to try and have one friendly to APAC time, so folks in Australia, New Zealand, and Asia can join too once in a while. So from the community calls, the most pressing topics that people have been bringing up are security mechanisms. How do we ensure that it is indeed secure when people adopt this spec? It has the right level of security and the user is unlikely to be subject to phishing attacks or malicious signing requests or replay attacks, different category of attacks. I see some excellent security experts on this call with us today who have also showed up to the community calls, and we're really grateful for your input. And just many eyes make bugs shallow, right? So that's the approach here too. We have to make trade-offs to figure out how we're going to get people to use this and be happy with it. One of the trade-offs we are going with the spec is it seems to be leaning towards the direction of EIP 191 or personal sign instead of 712 due to the adoption considerations, but we're having discussions about the pros and cons of each. And the summary of that is, I think everyone agrees that it would be great if we lived in a world where EIP 712 was beautifully displayed to every user on every wallet, and they can make a very forward decision to decide to log in or not. But sometimes on many wallets, it is displayed as a JSON blob. And in order to interpret that, that's more work that we would have to do to agree upon as a community. How do we interpret that blob and display it? And based on the timelines for the work, it may or may not work. So those are the kinds of discussions and trade-offs that we're having to make. We're also considering contract wallet support through EIP 1271. So you might have heard of Argent and Gnosis Safe. They use contract-based wallets that can also do personal signing and EIP 712 signing. So those are some of the topics, if you're interested in talking about, they'll probably come up again on the community calls, and we welcome you there. So if you want to learn more about the project overall, go to Login.xyz. It's that simple. We have an about page, a link to the draft spec, a link to the Discord if you want to talk live, and info for the next community call. We have a bunch of supporters who really want to see this effort take off. Everyone from wallets, dApps, engineers, and even Web2 companies that want to allow sign-in with Ethereum. So if you are part of the organization and you're not on this list yet, reach out, let's talk and see if you want to be a supporter for it. The next steps, we are sprinting hard to get a reference implementation in SDKs so we can demonstrate an end-to-end workflow. Standalone, any developer could download it and see for themselves how it would work and maybe how they would integrate it. Think about forward support paths. So if we do want to make upgrades to the spec over time, such as if wallet support new specs or Wallet Connect has a new version, how do we handle that? Continue our integration support and integrate into Auth0 and Passport.js or similar. Basically, how do people do authentication with Web2 services today? Okay, great. Let's just slot in a module so that signing with Ethereum is also an option. And then finally, for those really who care about Web2 authentication flows, we can support OpenID Connect so that they can just adjust a configuration file and be ready for signing with Ethereum. So thinking about adoption, making it easy for people to use is definitely our prerogative. So I'll stop there for any questions, but thanks for listening.
Perfect. Thank you, Wayne. Okay, yeah, we've got a lot of time here for questions or comments or any discussion. You can raise your hand and speak, or you can just put something in the chat. I will say that from responses on Twitter, it appears as though people are very excited about this. A couple of things that I like to emphasize are that signing with Ethereum already exists. It's just simply being done, with bespoke implementations by people throughout the ecosystem. It's like OpenSea or Kickback or Snapshot, or it's like they do just their own thing. And there are people doing good practices and people doing bad practices. So what this effort really is we don't need to solve every problem. We're not really trying to invent a new thing. It's just, so the first part of this was survey, what are people currently doing? Wayne and Rocco did tons of interviews. And then it's just really just like standardizing what's already being done, with best practices. And that should make it easier for other Web3 dApps to, use it and with best practices. And then also for Web2 services to also adopt it. I don't want to emphasize, if you are from a Web2 service or if you're listening, we would love to talk with you. We already have a lot of connections with Web3 people. We want Web2 people who can look at what we're doing to really just make sure that this makes sense and this is something they can use, because we want this to be something that they can literally just drop into their authentication options. Sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook, sign in with email, sign in with Ethereum. Super easy for them. And then we also are looking for some of those people not only to provide feedback, but to say, hey, we want to be pioneers here and be one of the first to implement it. So if that's you, we'd love to chat with you. Is Web2 really going to adopt this thing? They seem so crypto hostile sometimes. Yeah, so my expectation is that, I don't expect the vast majority of people or Web2 dApps or Web2 apps to implement anytime soon, but some I think will. In fact, we're already privately talking to some who've expressed interest. We'd love to talk to more, and I think some might be kind of early adopters. And then I don't know, if it's successful, you'll probably see more. It's probably be a thing where slowly then suddenly. You know what I mean? That is my hope. but we can try. Great. All right. Anything from anybody else? Should we just stop early, or should we talk about something else?
Yeah, I think there's a other blockchain. Are there any similar attempt on other blockchains?
Hold on a second. 0xBrendan.eth just raised his hand. Says,
Hey, how's it going?
hey, what's up?
So I just had a couple of questions, particularly pertaining to how far along is the web3 profile project at this point? Like, is it beyond like a prototype and like actually in development, or is it just kind of in the design phase right now?
Good question. So all of that is possible right now. I mean, it's ultimately just it's text records. The avatar thing obviously is working right now. We have other default text records. You can make text records. Some places use it, not a huge places. If you mean the update to our UI that kind of like displays it in that nice way and makes it much easier, it's honestly that whole redesign of our manager, which isn't just that page, it's the whole manager. That's a few months away.
I gotcha. And one other quick question I had, because I noticed that it looked like you could add some additional records that I don't see on the current manager. Is that something that's also already possible, just not in the current UI?
No, it actually isn't our current UI. So it just might not, it's just not super obvious necessarily.
Okay.
So like if you go to, I can tell you right now, maybe I could even screen share and show this. You go to like type in your name and you're connected. Then you, on the right-hand side, you hit add.
I don't think you're sharing.
Yeah, should I share? I'll share. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I should just make it really easy. Okay, share. Can you see?
Awesome. Okay, I see. Yeah, where it's.
So then you hit add edit record. And then, so then we have some like default records. I mean, I have a lot more than the default here. But the way, if you want to do anything that's not default there, you hit this thing here. It says add record. Now let's say text. Again, this stuff in the new manager is all going to be hidden in the background. So the user in the future won't be like, I'm doing like an avatar text record. They're just setting their avatar. In the background on chain, it's like an avatar text record. And actually our manager will have two views. So the default will be like your profile view that looks very nice for the average user. Then there will be an advanced tab that just shows all the raw data similar to how it is now, like if you know what you're doing. But here, key, of course, we have default ones, but if you want to make your own, I could be like my custom record. I hit create and boom, I have my own thing and I can enter any data in here and save it.
Nice.
Yeah, so that is all possible now. The basic functionality is pretty much all there. There's we will need to do some smart contract updates to make it so that you can set any arbitrary record in the registration process, and also a smart contract update so that you can set the reverse record in the registration process. But other than that, in terms of functionality like records or data, it's all possible right now. The manager is just making it simply easier to do.
I gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I'd searched for that before, but it definitely wasn't obvious in the current manager. But good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, I remember when we added the text record functionality and the custom stuff. It was more like, well, we had this thing. Rick Moo had made an EIP for it. We weren't really sure what people were going to do with it. It was sort of like, let's throw it in there and see what happens. But now with the current way people are using things and with our current vision, it's now become really important. So now we just need to update the UI to reflect that.
Gotcha. And one thing I know, I've listened to a couple of Twitter spaces that you've held. I know that you've mentioned that something about, I guess, trying to lower gas fees with like, I wasn't 100% sure what it was about, but I believe it was pertaining to records and editing and like updating those.
Yes, so good question. That's actually exactly what our next session is going to be about.
The layer two.
Layer two. So basically what that will be, what we're working on, and we're getting close to a basic implementation. it's a thing where it's going to take a couple stages and steps to like make it so it's easy for the average person. We really believe in like, release early, get people using it, early adopters, we can improve over time. But basically what that will allow people to do is to put records and subdomains on off-chain location of their choice. That could be an L2. So like, let's say registering a .eth name won't be impacted, but won't be improved by that. But if you're just trying to like set or update records, that will be vastly improved in terms of cost with our L2 work. But we'll talk about that in the next section.
I gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I just was curious about that, but that was pretty much it. I just had those few questions.
Perfect. Great. Great. Does anybody else have a question or a comment? All right. Well,
yeah. Actually, I do. Yeah, I think when we talked about logging with Ethereum, there is some people responded other similar effort in blockchain world. One thing I saw was like a Lightning network guys said, oh, we already have like login with Lightning or whatever stuff. Just wondering, still maybe in our list of research, wondering if there's any similar effort in different blockchains area, because they also have like a quick address, right?
Yeah. So ultimately, the core part of it is you're just signing a message with a private key. So any system in which you have a private key, you could do. I mean, you could do this with PGP, right? You could do this with anything. Yeah. So I'm not aware of any other like ecosystem in which it's widely used. Anything else is widely used as like with Ethereum. And for our standard, we're just focused on doing this for Ethereum and the Ethereum system, which is widely used. Of course, things can always be extended in the future, but that's what we're focused on.
Okay.
So like if something really, if signing with Tron became really popular, you know what, maybe it might make sense to merge our efforts. But my opinion is like, for the time being, it's not really worth like muddying the water and doing extra work to like make signing with Tron easier when nobody uses it currently. So we'll just focus on Ethereum for now.
I think Tron itself uses exactly the same address, so login with Ethereum would work with Tron. Maybe challenge would be more like something a different one, like non-Ethereum compatible wallet. I think.
If I may add, I would also put signing with Ethereum as an exercise in ecosystem coordination. The fact that we have been able to, bring people to the table and start talking about it successfully has been pretty huge. I think if we were less focused in that, it would be harder because there would be like too many stakeholders to interview and get buy-in from. So the fact that there's already a cohesive ecosystem and we can see if we can coordinate them further, that's actually been the toughest part of it, frankly, and the most time-consuming part. But it's been easier because we've been able to scope it to the ecosystem.
Did you speak to someone from like Argent? I think they are, yeah, good, because they are going for some different L2, and especially many of the ZK rollup chains, they have their own address space, so they are not as straightforward as others.
Yep. And after a conversation with them and some other people who think about contract wallets, that's why we made the chain ID a normative requirement in the spec, so that you could figure out what chain the contract would live on.
Yeah, I think Origin's already listed on the Login.xyz website. Yep, Jeff.
I have a question, Wayne. Thanks for heading up the sign in with Ethereum stuff. I'd just like to ask, what do you think was your biggest like roadblocker or your biggest obstacle you have to overcome so far since you started with the sign in with Ethereum standard?
It's exactly what I mentioned before, coordinating and making sure that people with different desires and needs, we can figure out something that works for everyone. Rocco, do you have more to add to that?
No, it's literally that. It makes you realize that it's mostly a human coordination problem rather than a technical problem, and making sure that all stakeholders from all sides, apps, wallets, developers, Web2 people, all their needs are heard, and just getting to that minimum viable that gets us there to ship it and make sure it's just enough to meet kind of that set of requirements.
Right. I would say Reuven in particular has been a major challenge. I'm just joking. He said this in the comments here. He said, I'm one of his major challenges. Ruben, we love you. Thank you for being a part of it.
We want that though, because
Yeah,
it's
we want
all
that.
it's all very legitimate discussion and like
Yeah,
figuring
that's
out
the whole
paths
point.
to accommodate. Like we want that.
Yeah, the whole point of this is we want different people's opinions so we can, find synthesis. Correct.
Yep, exactly. Like for example, one of the things I love about Reuven is that he looks like 3 years into the future about how standards are going to converge. And that's really powerful to consider that in the design now. And then we have to reconcile that with having something out and ready by before the end of the year. So that's where a lot of the discussions come from, and we talk about trade-offs. So it's all constructive, and I'm really impressed with everyone.
I have one more question. I think there's a Twitter space session on the Blue Sky guys, and I did join the camps. Well, I was just listening, and after that, I was checking the Discord, and I remember they were talking majority of the time whether like key pair would ever be used as an identity or something like that. And then when I look at the Discord, I saw you guys had a channel, so I'm guessing you are kind of active in Blue Sky space. Just would like to know your take on what they're working on.
Yeah, we're waiting for, with respect to Blue Sky, basically Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, and Square basically started that project. We've been just kind of interested to hear the updates and everything. We haven't been doing so much, but if signing with Ethereum could see some alignment with that effort, we'd be on top of that.
Yeah, and I'm engaging with some of the people in the Discord now. In fact, a lot of their people just honestly, they don't know very much about ENS or what's going on with it, which is fine. And so I was trying to schedule a call, hopefully like a public discussion that we'd like use Zoom and stream on YouTube later this week. Just like talk about ENS and our principles and plans and current things like this. Although none of us are really great at like knowing how to like stream something from Zoom or something. So we might need someone's help, but that we are trying to do more discussions with them.
Yeah, we are like 10 minutes early, but do we stop, or is there any other people have any questions?
Yeah, maybe we could stop early, have like a proper cup of tea break for Jeff and Leon. It's probably something harder than a cup of tea, and then come back in 15.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Tea or whiskey break. Yeah. And we'll come
That's
back.
enough time for 3 shots, right? Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. See you guys.
See everybody.
Yeah.